You slide out into the world completely helpless. The ice beneath you is cold and unforgiving, but your mother's body provides the only warmth you'll know for weeks. You can't see anything yet. Your eyes are sealed shut. You can't hear much beyond muffled sounds. You can barely move. What you can do is cry, and you're very good at that. Your voice is high-pitched and desperate, cutting through the Arctic wind like a blade. It's the only way your mother will find you if you get separated. And out here, separation means death. You're not alone. Other pups are scattered across the ice, each one as vulnerable as you. Some are closer to the water's edge, some farther inland. The positioning matters because the ice isn't permanent. It shifts, cracks, and sometimes disappears entirely. Your mother chose this spot carefully, but nothing is guaranteed. The colony is massive, hundreds of seals stretching in every direction. The noise is overwhelming. Pups crying, mothers barking, males fighting. It's chaos, but it's also safety. There's protection in numbers, and predators think twice before attacking a group this large. Your mother stays close for the first few days. She's exhausted from giving birth, and feeding you takes everything she has left. Her milk is incredibly rich, almost 50% fat. It has to be because you need to grow fast. Every day you don't gain weight is a day closer to not surviving. She barely leaves your side, and when she does, it's only to shift position or check for danger. She doesn't eat. She can't afford to hunt while you're this small and helpless. Her body is burning through fat reserves she built up over months. After about a week, something changes. Your eyes crack open for the first time, and the world floods in, bright, cold, and massive. Everything is white or gray or deep blue. The sky stretches endlessly above you, and the ocean extends beyond what you can comprehend. It's beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Your hearing sharpens too, and now you can distinguish between different calls. Your mother's bark becomes familiar among the hundreds of others. That's important because she's about to start leaving you alone. She needs to hunt. Her fat reserves are nearly gone, and if she doesn't eat soon, she won't have milk to give you. So she makes her first trip to the water, sliding across the ice with a grace you can't imagine possessing. You watch her disappear beneath the dark surface, and suddenly you're alone. The other pups around you are crying too, and you add your voice to theirs. It's not a conscious decision. It's pure instinct. The sound carries across the ice, a desperate chorus that says, "We're here. We're hungry. We need you." She's gone for hours. During that time, you learn what cold really means. The ice pulls heat from your body relentlessly. You curl up as tightly as possible, trying to conserve warmth, but it's never enough. Other pups shuffle closer, and you instinctively do the same. Huddling together helps, but it's not the same as your mother's warmth. Some of the smaller pups stop moving entirely. They're not dead, not yet, but they're shutting down to conserve energy. It's a dangerous game, because the longer they stay motionless, the harder it becomes to start moving again. Then she returns. You hear her call before you see her, and relief floods through you. She's heavier now. Her hunt was successful. She slides across the ice toward you, and you cry louder to guide her to your exact location. Among hundreds of pups, she needs to find you specifically. Your voice is unique to her, just like hers is to you. She reaches you and immediately begins feeding you. The milk is warm and rich, and you drink as much as your small stomach can hold. Your body temperature rises, and the desperate edge of hunger fades. This becomes the pattern. She hunts, you wait. Each time she leaves, you wonder if she'll come back. Each time she returns, you drink and grow a little bigger. After 2 weeks, you've doubled in size. Your fluffy white coat, called lanugo, keeps you warm, but it's not waterproof. You're still entirely dependent on the ice. The water might as well be another planet for all the good it does you. You watch your mother slip beneath the surface with ease, and you can't imagine how she does it. The ocean looks cold and dangerous and impossibly deep. Around 3 weeks, something unexpected happens. Another female approaches you while your mother is hunting. She's not aggressive, just curious. You cry for your mother, but this stranger doesn't leave. Instead, she sniffs you carefully, checking your scent. For a moment, it seems like she might feed you. Some mothers will nurse orphaned pups, though it's rare, but after a few seconds, she moves on. You're not hers, and she has her own pup to worry about. That's when you notice him, a pup about your size, lying motionless nearby. His mother hasn't returned from her last hunting trip. Maybe she got caught by a predator, maybe she got lost under the ice, maybe she simply couldn't find enough food. It doesn't matter why. What matters is that he's alone, and being alone means dying. You watch as he grows weaker. His cries become fainter. Other mothers pass by him, but none stop to help. It's not cruelty, it's survival. Every calorie they give to another pup is one less for their own offspring. By the time your mother returns, the orphaned pup has stopped moving entirely. She barely glances at him as she feeds you. Death is common here, and dwelling on it serves no purpose. You drink her rich milk and grow stronger while his body begins to freeze to the ice. The Arctic doesn't waste time mourning the dead. Within days, scavengers will find him, or the ice will shift and carry him away. That's the reality of this place. Brutal, efficient, and indifferent. As you approach 1 month old, your world expands slightly. You can move around more easily, though you're still clumsy on the ice. Your flippers are getting stronger, and you can lift your head higher to look around. The colony is smaller now. Some mothers and pups have moved to different areas, following the ice as it shifts. Others have simply disappeared. You don't think about where they went, because you don't have the capacity to understand concepts like death or loss yet. Your world is still very simple. Hunger, cold, warmth, food, mother, not mother. Your mother's hunting trips are getting longer. The fish she needs are harder to find, or they're deeper underwater, or they've moved to different areas entirely. Sometimes she's gone for an entire day. During these extended absences, you huddle with other pups for warmth. There's no friendship or bonding happening. It's purely practical. Body heat is life, and sharing it increases everyone's chances of survival. The larger pups dominate the center of the group, where it's warmest. Smaller pups like you get pushed to the edges, where the cold bites harder. That's when you learn about competition. It's not malicious or planned. It's just instinct. Every pup wants the warmest spot, the most milk, the safest position. If pushing another pup aside means you get something you need, you do it without thinking. They do the same to you. It's your first lesson in the fundamental truth of life here. Resources are limited, and everything is earned through strength, speed, or luck. At 5 weeks old, your lanugo begins to molt. The fluffy white fur that kept you warm starts falling out in patches, revealing darker fur underneath. This isn't just a cosmetic change, it's preparation for your next phase of life. The adult fur growing in is waterproof, designed for swimming rather than just staying warm on ice. Your body is preparing for something your mind can't yet comprehend, leaving the ice behind. But first, you have to survive what's coming next. Your mother's milk production is decreasing as your nutritional needs increase. Soon, very soon, she'll stop feeding you entirely. It's called weaning, and it marks the end of the safest period of your life. Up until now, survival depended on your mother's ability to hunt and return. After weaning, survival will depend entirely on you. The signs are already there if you know how to read them. Her absences are longer and more frequent. When she does return, she sometimes seems reluctant to feed you. She's not being cruel, she's following an instinct older than memory. Your growing size and strength signal that you're ready for the next phase. Her job as your sole provider is nearly complete, and her body is telling her to prepare for next year's breeding season instead of continuing to drain herself for this year's offspring. One morning, she leaves for what will be her final hunting trip as your mother. You don't know it's the last time, of course. You huddle with the other pups as you always do, conserving warmth and waiting. But when evening comes and she hasn't returned, something feels different. Your hunger is sharper than usual. The cold seems to penetrate deeper. Other mothers are returning to their pups, but yours is nowhere to be seen. The night passes slowly. Dawn breaks gray and harsh across the ice, and still no sign of her. Your cries become more desperate, cutting through the morning air with renewed urgency. Some of the other pups have gone quiet. Their mothers returned hours ago, and they're sleeping off full bellies of rich milk. Their contentment makes your hunger more acute. You call until your throat is raw, but there's no answer. By the second day, you begin to understand. She's not coming back. This isn't abandonment or accident. This is nature's way of forcing you toward independence. Your lanugo is nearly gone now, replaced by the sleek fur of a juvenile seal. Your body is larger and stronger than it was just weeks ago. Most importantly, your digestive system has matured to the point where it can handle solid food instead of just milk. You are, whether you realize it or not, ready for the next phase of your life. The problem is that being ready and being prepared are two different things. You've never caught a fish. You've never been underwater for more than a few seconds. You don't know which areas of the ocean are safe and which are filled with predators waiting for inexperienced pups like you. All of that knowledge has to be learned through trial and error often means death. Sick. But hunger is a powerful teacher, and yours is growing stronger by the hour. Soon, very soon, you'll have to make a choice that will define the rest of your life. Stay on the familiar ice and slowly starve, or enter the alien world of the ocean and learn to hunt. The ice that has been your entire universe is about to become just a memory, and the vast, dark waters that once seemed impossibly dangerous are about to become your new home. Whether you're ready or not, it's time to learn what it really means to be a seal. The decision isn't really a decision at all. Hunger makes it for you. By the third day without your mother, the gnawing emptiness in your stomach becomes unbearable. You've watched other pups your age shuffle toward the water's edge, driven by the same desperate need. Some hesitate at the boundary between ice and ocean. Others plunge in without looking back. You don't see all of them come back up. You approach the edge slowly, your flippers sliding awkwardly on the slick surface. The water looks impossibly black and deep. Ice extends down into it like frozen claws, and beyond that, there's nothing but darkness. The cold radiates up from the surface, hitting you before you even touch it. Every instinct screams at you to turn around, to wait for your mother, to find another way. But there is no other way. The first touch of water against your flipper is shocking. It's colder than the ice somehow, biting through your new fur like it's nothing. You pull back instinctively, but hunger drives you forward again. This time, you slide your entire flipper into the water. The cold shoots up your leg, but something else happens too. Your flipper moves differently in the water, smoother, more controlled. For the first time in your life, the clumsy appendage that barely worked on ice feels natural. You lower your head to the surface, and the water touches your nose. The shock makes you jerk backward, but you try again. This time, you dip your face just below the surface. The world changes instantly. Sound becomes muffled and strange. Light bends and shifts in ways you've never experienced. Most importantly, you see movement, small, quick shapes darting through the water below you. Fish and food see sparks. Your first attempt at diving is a disaster. You push forward too hard and belly flop into the water with a splash that probably scares every fish within a mile. The cold hits your body like a physical blow, driving the air from your lungs. You panic, flailing your flippers wildly, trying to get back to the surface. When you finally break through, gasping and choking, you're exhausted and no closer to catching anything. But you're also no longer afraid of the water. The initial shock is over, and your body is adapting faster than you expected. Your heart rate slows, your breathing becomes more controlled. The waterproof fur that replaced your lanugo is doing its job, trapping warm air close to your skin. You're still cold, but it's manageable now. You try again, this time sliding into the water more carefully. Your flippers start to work the way they were designed to, where they were awkward and useless on ice. They're suddenly powerful and precise underwater. You can steer with small movements, accelerate with strong strokes, brake by spreading them wide. It's like discovering you had wings all along. The fish are everywhere, but catching them is another matter entirely. They're fast and agile, darting away the moment you get close. Your first few attempts are embarrassing, lunging at empty water while your prey disappears in the opposite direction. You surface repeatedly to breathe, each time more frustrated than the last. Other young seals are having the same problem, surfacing empty-mouthed and increasingly desperate. Then you notice something. An older juvenile, maybe a few months ahead of you in development, approaches the fish differently. Instead of charging straight at them, he positions himself below and to the side, herding them toward a corner where ice meets water. The fish panic and scatter, but with nowhere to go, one swims directly into his waiting jaws. He surfaces with his first catch, and you watch him swallow it whole. You try to copy his technique, but your movements are too crude, too obvious. The fish see you coming from far away and avoid the trap entirely. Frustration builds with each failed attempt. Your energy reserves are dwindling, and every unsuccessful dive uses up precious calories you can't afford to waste. Some of the other pups have given up entirely, floating listlessly on the surface or hauling themselves back onto the ice to rest. That's when instinct takes over, in a way you don't expect. Instead of thinking about the hunt, you simply react. A small fish darts past your peripheral vision, and your head snaps toward it automatically. Your jaws close around something solid and wriggling. The fish struggles in your mouth, its scales rough against your tongue, but you don't let go. You surface quickly and swallow before it can escape. The taste is unlike anything you've experienced. It's not the rich, warm milk you're used to. It's cold and salty and slightly bitter, but it's food, and your empty stomach accepts it gratefully. More importantly, you've proven something to yourself. You can do this. You can hunt. You can survive without your mother. The success changes everything. Your next dive is more confident, your movements more fluid. You don't catch anything on the second attempt, but you get closer. The third try yields another small fish, then a fourth. Each success builds on the last, teaching you something new about timing, positioning, or technique. By the end of your first day of hunting, you've caught enough to take the sharp edge off your hunger. But hunting is only part of survival. As evening approaches, you face a new challenge: where to sleep. On ice, the answer was simple: wherever your mother was. Now you have choices, and each one comes with risks. You can haul out onto the ice with the other seals, but that means competing for the best spots and dealing with larger, more aggressive individuals. You can stay in the water, but that means constant vigilance against predators and the gradual loss of body heat. You choose the ice, pulling yourself up with movements that are getting stronger and more coordinated. The other seals barely acknowledge your presence. You're not a threat or an ally, just another body taking up space. You find a spot downwind from a group of adults, hoping to catch some protection from their bulk. The ice is still brutally cold, but your new fur helps more than you expected. Sleep comes in fragments. You doze for a few minutes, then wake to check for danger, then doze again. It's exhausting, but it's how seals sleep, always alert, always ready to move. During one of your waking moments, you notice movement at the edge of the ice. Something large and pale is moving through the water, too big to be a seal. Your muscles tense instinctively, though you don't know why. The other seals have noticed too. The adults shift restlessly, some sliding closer to the center of the group. A few of the more experienced ones raise their heads to scan the water more carefully. The tension is infectious, spreading through the colony like a wave. You don't understand what you're looking at, but you know it's dangerous. It's a polar bear, though you have no name for it yet. It's hunting, searching for seals who ventured too close to the edge or chose their resting spots poorly. The bear moves through the water with surprising grace for something so massive, its powerful limbs propelling it forward with barely a ripple. Its black nose is raised above the surface, testing the air for scent. The attack, when it comes, is swift and brutal. The bear explodes from the water near a group of younger seals, its massive paws slamming down on the ice. Several seals scatter in different directions, but one isn't quick enough. The bear's jaws close around it before it can reach the water's edge. The struggle is brief and one-sided. You scramble backward with the other seals, putting distance between yourself and the predator. Your heart pounds so hard you can feel it in your flippers. This is your first real encounter with the food chain you're now part of. You're no longer just a helpless pup, protected by your mother's vigilance. You're prey, and there are things out there actively hunting for seals exactly like you. The bear feeds quickly, then slips back into the water to search for more opportunities. The colony settles down gradually, but the mood has changed. Sleep becomes even more fragmented, with seals constantly checking the water for signs of danger. You learn to position yourself with escape routes in mind, never more than a few quick movements from the water's edge. Morning brings new challenges. Your successful hunting yesterday was encouraging, but it was also beginner's luck combined with desperation. Today, you need to prove you can do it consistently. The fish seem warier, or maybe you're overthinking your approach. Your first several dives produce nothing but frustration and wasted energy. Other young seals are struggling too. You see one surface repeatedly, each time more exhausted than the last. Another has given up hunting entirely and is begging from adults, crying the same high-pitched calls you used with your mother. The adults ignore him completely. There's no charity in this world. Every seal needs to earn their own survival. You adjust your strategy, focusing on smaller, slower fish rather than the quick ones that keep escaping. It takes longer to find them, but when you do strike, your success rate is higher. You also start paying attention to the hunting patterns of more experienced seals, noting how they use currents and ice formations to their advantage. By midday, you've caught enough to satisfy your immediate hunger, but you're learning that hunting is more than just finding food. It's about building energy reserves for lean times, developing skills that will serve you for years to come, and establishing patterns that will keep you alive in an environment where small mistakes have fatal consequences. The afternoon brings your first encounter with competition from your own kind. You spot a fish trapped in a small pocket of water between ice chunks, an easy catch that will barely require a dive. But as you approach, another young seal appears from the opposite direction, clearly heading for the same target. You both pause, sizing each other up. He's slightly larger than you, but not by much. More importantly, he looks as hungry as you feel. Neither of you backs down. You both dive simultaneously, racing toward the trapped fish. The collision happens underwater, a tangle of flippers and snapping jaws as you both try to reach the target first. You taste blood, though you're not sure if it's yours or his. You emerge with the fish, but your opponent surfaces right beside you, one flipper scratched and bleeding from your claws. He lunges for your catch, trying to steal it directly from your mouth. You turn away, protecting your prize, and he bites down on your shoulder. The pain is sharp and immediate, but you don't drop the fish. The fight is brief but intense. You're both too inexperienced for prolonged combat, and the energy cost of fighting is almost as high as hunting itself. Eventually, he gives up and swims away to find easier prey. You swallow your hard-won meal, but the encounter teaches you something important. Other seals aren't allies, they're competitors, and sometimes they're threats. As your first week of independent life progresses, you begin to understand the rhythm of seal existence. Hunt when you can, rest when you must, stay alert always. The constant vigilance is exhausting, but it becomes second nature surprisingly quickly. Your senses sharpen to detect the subtle signs of danger, changes in water movement that might indicate a predator, shifts in the behavior of other seals that suggest a threat. Your hunting skills improve daily through necessity and repetition. You learn to read water currents, to anticipate fish movements, to use ice formations as hunting aids. Your success rate climbs from 1 fish in 10 attempts to 1 in 5, then 1 in 3. It's still far from the effortless precision of adult seals, but it's enough to keep you alive and growing. The social dynamics of the colony become clearer as well. There are hierarchies based on size, age, and experience. Dominant seals get the best resting spots, first access to prime hunting areas, and deference from smaller individuals. You're near the bottom of this hierarchy, but that also means you're largely ignored unless you directly challenge someone or compete for resources. You also begin to notice the seasonal changes that will define your life from now on. The ice shifts constantly, breaking apart and reforming in new patterns. Some hunting areas that were productive yesterday are inaccessible today. Weather patterns affect fish behavior, which in turn affects your success rate. Everything is connected, and understanding these connections becomes crucial for long-term survival. Your body continues to change and adapt. Your flippers grow stronger and more precise. Your lung capacity increases, allowing for longer dives. Your fur thickens and becomes more effective at insulation. Most importantly, your instincts sharpen, that indefinable sense that tells you when to hunt, when to rest, when to flee, and when to fight. But perhaps the most significant change is psychological, the desperate, helpless creature that depended entirely on maternal and more self-reliant. Your still care is gone, replaced by something harder young, still learning, still making mistakes that could prove fatal. But you're no longer a pup, you're a juvenile seal, and you're writing your own story of survival in the harsh waters of the Arctic. But survival as a juvenile seal isn't just about catching fish and avoiding predators. It's about learning the unwritten rules of a world that doesn't care if you live or die. You discover this the hard way when you make your first major mistake. It's a calm morning. The water is clear, and you spot what looks like an easy meal, a large fish moving slowly near the bottom. You dive deeper than you ever have before, chasing it down through layers of increasingly cold water. The fish stays just out of reach, leading you deeper and deeper. Your lungs start to burn, but the prize seems so close. You push harder, swimming faster, ignoring the warning signals your body is sending. Then suddenly, you realize you can't see the surface anymore. The light above you is dim and distant, and panic sets in. You've gone too deep, stayed down too long, and now you're in trouble. You turn upward and swim as hard as you can, but the surface seems impossibly far away. Your vision starts to narrow, and your movements become sluggish. Just when you think you won't make it, you break through, gasping and choking. The air has never tasted so sweet, but you're shaking from more than just cold. You nearly died chasing a fish that was probably leading you away from its nest on purpose. That night, as you rest on the ice, you notice something different about the other seals. They seem more alert, more restless than usual. The adults keep lifting their heads to scan the horizon, and there's an edge to their movements that wasn't there before. You don't understand what's happening, but their anxiety is contagious. Something is coming, something that has the entire colony on edge. The change comes gradually at first. The ice beneath you shifts more frequently, creaking and groaning as hidden forces work against it. Cracks appear where there were none before, spreading like spider webs across the surface. The wind picks up, carrying new scents and sounds from distant places. Then the temperature drops even further, and you realize you're experiencing your first Arctic stormizzard hits with the BL fury you couldn't have imagined. Snow doesn't fall, it attacks, driven horizontal by winds that threaten to knock you off the ice entirely. Visibility drops to almost nothing, and the familiar landmarks you've learned to navigate disappear in the white chaos. Other seals vanish into the storm, their dark shapes swallowed by the swirling snow. You huddle against a ridge of ice, trying to shield yourself from the worst of the wind. The cold is different now, not just uncomfortable, but genuinely dangerous. It seeps through your fur and into your bones, making your muscles stiff and unresponsive. You can't hunt in conditions like this, can't even see the water's edge clearly enough to know where safety lies. The storm lasts 3 days. During that time, you eat nothing. The fish have either moved to deeper, calmer waters, or they're simply impossible to find in the churning chaos above. You drift in and out of a kind of hibernation state, conserving energy by barely moving. Other seals do the same, creating a ghostly landscape of motionless forms scattered across the ice. When the storm finally breaks, the world has been transformed. Ice formations you knew by heart have been rearranged or destroyed entirely. New channels of open water cut through areas that were solid just days ago. Most disturbing of all, some of the seals are missing. You count fewer bodies than you remember, and you wonder if they found shelter elsewhere or if the storm claimed them permanently. Your first hunt after the storm is a humbling experience. 3 days without food have left you weak and unsteady. Your timing is off, your reflexes slow. Fish that would have been easy catches before the storm now slip away effortlessly. It takes most of the day to catch a single small fish, barely enough to take the edge off your hunger. But you're learning something important about resilience. Each setback teaches you to prepare better for the next one. You start seeking out more sheltered hunting spots, places where ice formations provide protection from wind and current. You learn to recognize the signs of approaching weather changes, subtle shifts in wind direction, changes in the behavior of birds, the way ice sounds different when temperature drops are coming. your social awareness is developing too. You begin to understand the complex relationships between different seals in the colony. There are family groups, territorial disputes, and informal alliances that shift based on circumstances. You're still too young and small to be a major player in these dynamics, but understanding them helps you avoid conflicts and find opportunities. One afternoon, while hunting in a relatively shallow area, you notice an older seal watching you. She's not threatening, just observing your technique with what almost seems like professional interest. When you surface after a successful catch, she approaches slowly. You tense, expecting competition or aggression, but instead she demonstrates something. She dives smoothly, positions herself near a school of fish, then uses a technique you've never seen before, herding them with precise flipper movements until they're trapped against an ice wall. She surfaces and looks at you expectantly. It takes you a moment to realize she's teaching you. You try to copy her movements, but your execution is clumsy and the fish scatter. She demonstrates again, more slowly this time. On your third attempt, you manage a crude version of her technique and actually catch 2 fish instead of your usual one. The interaction lasts only a few minutes, and then she swims away without any further acknowledgement. You never see her again, but the lesson stays with you. Not all seals are competitors or threats. Some, for reasons you don't understand, are willing to share knowledge that could mean the difference between thriving and merely surviving. Your hunting territory gradually expands as your confidence grows. You venture into deeper waters, explore areas farther from the main colony, and learn to read the subtle signs that indicate where fish are likely to be found. Each new area brings new challenges, different currents, unfamiliar ice formations, and sometimes other predators you haven't encountered before. It's during one of these explorations that you have your first encounter with something that will become a constant presence in your life: orcas. You're hunting in relatively deep water when you notice that all the fish in the area have suddenly disappeared. The water around you becomes eerily quiet, and instinct tells you something is wrong before you consciously understand what it is. You surface to breathe and scan the area, looking for whatever scared the fish away. At first, you see nothing, just the usual expanse of dark water and scattered ice. Then you notice movement in the distance, black fins cutting through the water with a purpose and coordination that's completely different from anything you've seen before. They're still far away, but they're moving in your direction. Every seal in the area has the same reaction. Without any visible signal or communication, they all begin moving toward the ice as quickly as possible. You follow their lead, swimming harder than you ever have before. The ice edge that seemed reasonably close suddenly feels impossibly distant. Behind you, the black fins are getting larger, moving with a speed that makes your desperate swimming seem pathetically slow. You reach the ice just ahead of several other seals, hauling yourself up with a panic-driven strength you didn't know you possessed. Other seals pile up behind you, some literally climbing over each other in their desperation to get out of the water. You scramble inland as far as your flippers will carry you, putting as much distance as possible between yourself and the water's edge. The orcas arrive minutes later. From your position on the ice, you can see them clearly for the first time, massive black and white forms moving through the water with a grace that's both beautiful and terrifying. They're hunting, and they're hunting seals. You watch as they patrol the ice edge, occasionally surfacing to breathe, their intelligent eyes scanning the colony for any seal foolish enough to enter the water. The siege lasts for hours. The entire colony is trapped on the ice, unable to hunt, unable to drink, unable to do anything but wait for the orcas to lose interest and move on. Some of the younger seals become increasingly agitated as hunger and thirst build. A few of the less experienced ones actually approach the water's edge, drawn by desperation despite the obvious danger. One juvenile seal finally cracks. Driven by hunger and perhaps lacking the experience to truly understand the threat, he slips into the water at the far end of the ice floe. The orcas are on him instantly. The attack is swift and coordinated, leaving no doubt about the outcome. The water briefly turns red, then returns to its normal dark blue as if nothing had happened. The message is clear, and it settles over the colony like a heavy blanket. The orcas own the water when they choose to. All the swimming skills, hunting techniques, and survival instincts you've developed are useless when they're around. The only defense is to stay out of their reach and wait for them to leave. Eventually, they do move on, their black fins disappearing over the horizon as they continue their patrol of the Arctic waters. The colony gradually returns to normal activity, but something has changed in your understanding of your place in this ecosystem. You're not just a predator learning to hunt fish. You're also prey, and there are things in these waters that view you the same way you view the fish you catch. This knowledge changes how you approach everything. Your hunting becomes more cautious, your attention more divided between finding food and watching for threats. You learn to hunt closer to ice edges, to always have an escape route planned, to read the subtle signs that might indicate the presence of larger predators. Your body continues to grow and strengthen throughout this period. By the time you're 6 months old, you've nearly doubled in size since weaning. Your hunting success rate has improved dramatically, and you're beginning to develop preferences for certain types of fish and hunting techniques that work best for your particular style and abilities. But growth brings new challenges as well as new capabilities. Larger size means higher energy requirements. You need to catch more fish just to maintain your current condition, let alone continue growing. You also begin to attract more attention from other seals, both as potential competition and as someone worth challenging for territory or resources. Your first real territorial dispute happens over a particularly productive fishing spot, a narrow channel between two ice formations where currents tend to concentrate schools of small fish. You've been hunting there successfully for several days when a larger juvenile arrives and makes it clear he wants you gone. The confrontation starts with posturing, aggressive postures, loud vocalizations, and displays of size and strength. You're outmatched physically, but the fishing spot represents days of successful hunting, and losing it could mean going hungry. You stand your ground, hoping your determination will compensate for your smaller size. The actual fight is brief but intense. Seals aren't built for prolonged combat on ice. Your flippers are designed for swimming, not wrestling. The larger seal uses his size advantage to pin you down, but you manage to twist away and deliver a solid bite to his shoulder. The taste of blood fills your mouth, and for a moment you think you might actually win. Then his weight shifts, and you're trapped beneath him with no leverage to escape. His teeth find your neck, not quite breaking the skin, but applying enough pressure to make his point clear. You stop struggling, signaling submission, and he releases you immediately. The fight is over, and you've lost your fishing spot. The defeat stings, but it teaches you important lessons about picking your battles. Size and experience matter in direct confrontations, and sometimes the smart choice is to find a new territory rather than fight for an old one. You spend the next several days exploring new areas, eventually finding another productive fishing spot that's less contested. As your first year of independent life progresses, you begin to understand the seasonal rhythms that will define your existence. Ice conditions change predictably with temperature variations. Fish populations migrate in response to water temperature and food availability. Weather patterns follow cycles that become readable once you know what signs to look for. You also start to develop the psychological toughness that separates seals who thrive from those who merely survive. The constant vigilance, the acceptance of discomfort, the ability to remain calm under pressure, these traits develop gradually through repeated exposure to challenging situations. Your hunting skills reach a level where you can consistently find enough food to maintain your growth and energy levels. You've learned to read water conditions, to predict fish behavior, and to adapt your techniques to different situations. Most importantly, you've developed the confidence that comes from proving to yourself repeatedly that you can overcome challenges. But confidence can be dangerous if it leads to carelessness. You're reminded of this when you venture into an area you've never explored before, drawn by reports from other seals of exceptional fishing opportunities. The water is deeper than you're used to, and the ice formations are unfamiliar, but the promise of easy meals overrides your caution. The fishing is indeed excellent, so good that you become completely absorbed in hunting, losing track of time and your surroundings. It's only when you surface for air and notice how quiet the area has become that you realize you might be in trouble. The other seals who led you here are nowhere to be seen, and the ice formations that should have provided landmarks seem different somehow. You're lost. In your enthusiasm for good hunting, you've swum farther from familiar territory than you realized, and now you can't find your way back. The water all looks the same, the ice formations are unfamiliar, and panic begins to set in. You pick a direction that feels right and start swimming, but after an hour of steady movement, nothing looks any more familiar than when you started. Night is approaching, and you need to find ice to rest on, but you don't know which ice formations are stable and which might be dangerous. You choose what looks like a solid flow and haul yourself up, but the surface is rougher than you expected, and there are no other seals around to provide the security of numbers. Sleep is impossible. Every sound makes you alert. Every shift in the ice makes you wonder if it's about to break apart beneath you. You're discovering that being alone in the Arctic isn't just physically challenging, it's psychologically exhausting. The constant vigilance required when you have no backup, no familiar territory, no social cues from other seals to help interpret potential threats. Dawn brings no immediate relief. The landscape around you is still completely unfamiliar, and you have to make a choice, pick a direction, and hope for the best, or stay where you are and hope that other seals will eventually pass through the area. Neither option feels particularly promising, but staying put seems like giving up entirely. You choose movement, swimming in what you hope is the direction of familiar territory. The journey becomes a test of everything you've learned about navigation, about reading water conditions, about conserving energy while maintaining steady progress. Hours pass with no sign of familiar landmarks, and your confidence begins to waver. Then, just when you're starting to consider the possibility that you might never find your way back, you spot something in the distance, a distinctive ice formation that you recognize from previous hunting trips. Relief floods through you as you realize you've been swimming roughly parallel to familiar territory instead of away from it. A course correction brings you back to known waters, and by evening you're back in your usual hunting grounds. The experience teaches you respect for the vast scale of your environment and the importance of maintaining awareness of your position at all times. Getting lost in the Arctic isn't just inconvenient, it can be fatal. You develop better habits for marking landmarks, for maintaining mental maps of your movements, and for never venturing so far into unfamiliar territory that you can't retrace your route. As winter deepens, the challenges of seal life intensify. Ice becomes thicker and more permanent, which provides better resting platforms, but also makes it harder to find breathing holes and hunting opportunities. Fish behavior changes in response to the colder water, often moving deeper or becoming less active, which means longer, more energy-intensive hunts for smaller rewards. Your body adapts to these conditions by becoming more efficient. Your metabolism adjusts to extract maximum energy from every meal. Your fur grows thicker to provide better insulation, and your hunting techniques become more precise to minimize wasted effort. You're no longer the desperate, inexperienced pup who barely survived his first week of independence. You're becoming a competent predator capable of thriving in one of Earth's most challenging environments. But thriving as a young seal means more than just individual survival. It means understanding your place in the larger ecosystem, recognizing the patterns and relationships that connect all life in the Arctic. You're part of a food web that extends from the smallest plankton to the largest predators, and your success or failure ripples through the entire system. This understanding comes gradually through observation and experience rather than conscious learning. You notice how your hunting success affects the local fish populations, how the presence of predators influences the behavior of entire seal colonies, how weather patterns and ice conditions create opportunities and challenges for every species in the region. Your first Arctic winter as an independent seal is drawing to a close, and you've accomplished something remarkable. You've survived. Not just barely scraped by, but actually grown stronger and more capable throughout the process. The helpless pup, who depended entirely on maternal care, has become a skilled hunter, a competent navigator, and a valuable member of the Arctic ecosystem. But survival is just the beginning. As you enter your second year of life, new challenges and opportunities await. Your body will continue to grow and mature. Your skills will become more refined, and eventually, you'll face the ultimate test of seal life, finding a mate and passing your hard-won survival skills to the next generation. As your second year begins, your world expands in ways you never anticipated. The territorial boundaries that once seemed absolute start to blur as you venture into waters claimed by other seals, testing limits and establishing your own place in the hierarchy. You're no longer content to hunt in the scraps of territory left by larger seals. You want the prime spots, the channels where fish are most abundant, the ice formations that provide the best access to deep water. Your first serious territorial challenge comes from an unexpected source. You've been successfully hunting in a narrow strait between two ice shelves when a female your own age arrives and makes it clear she's not leaving. Unlike your previous encounters with competitors, this isn't about size or intimidation. It's about technique and determination. She's as skilled as you are, and she wants the same resources. The standoff lasts for hours. Neither of you is willing to back down, but neither is quite ready to escalate to physical confrontation. You hunt at opposite ends of the territory, each trying to outperform the other, each hoping the other will eventually give up and move on. It becomes a strange kind of competition. Who can catch more fish, who can dive deeper, who can stay underwater longer. Gradually, something unexpected happens. Instead of driving each other away, you begin to develop a grudging respect for each other's abilities. When a group of younger seals arrives and tries to muscle into your territory, you both turn on them with coordinated aggression that surprises even you. Without planning or discussion, you've formed a temporary alliance. The partnership works better than either of you anticipated. Two seals can control a larger territory than one, can watch for predators while the other hunts, can share information about fish movements and ice conditions. What starts as practical cooperation slowly evolves into something more complex, not friendship exactly, but a working relationship based on mutual benefit and shared experience. Your hunting techniques continue to evolve through this period. You develop signature moves that work particularly well for your body type and temperament. Where some seals rely on speed and aggression, you become more methodical, using patience and positioning to outmaneuver your prey. You learn to read the subtle signs that indicate where fish will be rather than where they are, allowing you to intercept them rather than chase them. The partnership with your territorial co-occupant teaches you about coordination in ways you never experienced as a solitary hunter. You learn to work in tandem, one seal driving fish toward the other, both of you adjusting your positions based on the other's movements. It's more efficient than hunting alone, but it also requires a level of trust and communication that challenges your naturally independent instincts. Weather becomes more predictable as you gain experience reading the signs. You can sense approaching storms hours before they arrive, not through any magical ability, but through accumulated observation of wind patterns, ice behavior, and the way other animals respond to atmospheric pressure changes. This knowledge allows you to plan your activities around weather conditions, hunting intensively before storms, and taking shelter when conditions become dangerous. Your body reaches something approaching its adult proportions during this period. The rapid growth of your first year slows to a steadier pace, but you continue to add muscle mass and refine your physical capabilities. Your lung capacity increases to the point where you can stay underwater for extended periods, opening up new hunting opportunities in deeper waters that were previously inaccessible. The psychological changes are just as significant as the physical ones. The desperate anxiety that characterized your early independent months gives way to a more measured confidence. You still maintain constant vigilance that never goes away, but it becomes background awareness rather than consuming fear. You can focus on hunting, navigation, and social interaction without the constant mental noise of survival panic. This growing confidence leads to your first major mistake in months. You're hunting in familiar territory when you notice unusual activity among the fish. They're schooling more tightly than normal, moving in patterns that suggest something is driving them. Instead of recognizing this as a potential warning sign, you see it as an opportunity. Concentrated fish mean easier hunting, and you dive deeper into the school than you normally would. The attack comes from below. A leopard seal, massive and perfectly camouflaged against the darker water, explodes upward through the fish school directly at you. You have perhaps a second to react, and instinct takes over before conscious thought. You twist sideways, using every ounce of agility you possess to avoid the crushing jaws aimed at your midsection. The leopard seal's teeth scrape along your side, tearing through fur and skin, but missing anything vital. You rocket toward the surface, adrenaline overriding pain, the massive predator in pursuit. The ice edge seems impossibly far away, and you can feel the leopard seal gaining on you with every stroke. Its superior size and power make it faster in short bursts, and this is definitely going to be a short burst. You reach the ice with the predator's jaws, snapping at your tail flippers. Your exit from the water is more of a controlled crash than a graceful haul out, but you make it onto solid ice with all your essential parts intact. The leopard seal surfaces behind you, its enormous head breaking the water with barely a splash despite its size. For a moment, predator and prey regard each other across the boundary between water and ice. Then the leopard seal sinks back beneath the surface and disappears, leaving you shaking on the ice with fresh wounds and a renewed appreciation for how quickly things can go wrong. The encounter lasts less than a minute from start to finish, but it reminds you that no amount of skill or experience makes you immune to the fundamental realities of the food chain. The wounds heal over the following weeks, leaving scars that serve as permanent reminders of your brush with death. But the psychological impact is more lasting than the physical damage. You develop a more sophisticated understanding of risk assessment, learning to recognize the subtle signs that might indicate the presence of larger predators before they become immediate threats. Your territorial partnership evolves during your recovery period. Your co-occupant takes on more of the hunting duties while you heal, and you reciprocate by serving as a lookout and early warning system. The experience deepens your working relationship and teaches you about the benefits of cooperation in an environment that generally rewards individual effort. As your second year progresses, you begin to notice changes in your social awareness that go beyond simple territorial cooperation. You start paying attention to the broader patterns of SEAL society, which individuals are dominant, which alliances form and dissolve, which areas are considered neutral territory, where different groups can coexist peacefully. The colony's social structure becomes more visible to you as you mature. There are established hierarchies based on age, size, and experience, but also informal networks of relationships that influence access to resources and information. Some SEALs are connected to multiple groups, serving as bridges between different social clusters. Others are more isolated, relying primarily on their individual capabilities. You find yourself drawn toward the bridge builders rather than the isolationists. Your territorial partnership has taught you the value of cooperation, and you begin to form loose associations with other SEALs of similar age and experience. These relationships aren't as formal or intensive as your territorial arrangement, but they provide social connections that make life more predictable and less stressful. Your hunting territory expands significantly as your confidence and abilities grow. You venture into deeper waters, explore areas farther from the main colony, and learn to exploit seasonal opportunities that require advanced planning and navigation skills. Each new area brings new challenges and learning opportunities, gradually building your mental map of the region. One of your most significant discoveries during this period is a deep underwater canyon that runs between two major ice formations. The canyon creates upwelling currents that bring nutrient-rich water from the depths, attracting large schools of fish that are rarely found in shallower areas. The fishing is exceptional, but accessing it requires diving deeper and staying underwater longer than you've ever attempted before. Your first expeditions to the canyon are tentative and brief. You dive just deep enough to confirm that the fish are there, then return to the surface to plan more ambitious attempts. Each subsequent dive teaches you something new about managing your air supply, about the pressure changes that accompany greater depths, about the different techniques required to hunt effectively in three-dimensional space rather than the relatively flat hunting grounds you're used to. The canyon becomes your secret advantage. While other SEALs compete for access to the well-known fishing spots near the surface, you have exclusive access to a resource that few others even know exists. Your hunting success rate improves dramatically, allowing you to build energy reserves that will prove crucial during lean periods. But success breeds its own challenges. Your improved condition and obvious prosperity attract attention from other seals who want to know where you're finding such abundant food. Some approach directly, hoping to follow you to your hunting grounds. Others try more subtle observation, watching your movements from a distance and attempting to track your hunting patterns. You develop countermeasures almost instinctively. You vary your routes to and from the canyon, sometimes making deliberate detours to obscure your true destination. You hunt in other areas as well, maintaining the appearance that your success comes from superior technique rather than exclusive access to prime territory. Most importantly, you learn to hunt at times when fewer seals are active, reducing the chances of being observed. The deception works for several months, but eventually your secret is discovered. A particularly persistent older seal follows you at a distance during one of your canyon expeditions, staying far enough back to avoid detection, but close enough to observe your diving patterns. When you surface from a successful hunt, he's waiting nearby with an expression that makes his intentions clear. The confrontation that follows is different from your previous territorial disputes. This isn't about a specific fishing spot or temporary access to resources. It's about knowledge. He wants to know about the canyon, and he's prepared to fight for that information. You realize that your options are limited. Share the resource and lose your competitive advantage, or fight a larger, more experienced opponent for the right to maintain your exclusive access. You choose to fight, not because you think you can win, but because the alternative means giving up everything that's made your second year successful. The battle is more intense than any physical confrontation you've experienced before. Both of you understand what's at stake, and both are willing to endure significant damage to achieve your objectives. The fight moves from ice to water and back again, neither of you able to maintain a decisive advantage in either environment. Your opponent has size and experience, but you have desperation and superior knowledge of the local terrain. You use every trick you've learned about underwater combat, every advantage you can gain from familiarity with the area. Eventually, exhaustion forces a temporary truce. Both of you are battered and bleeding, neither able to continue fighting at full intensity, but the older seal has learned enough from the encounter to piece together the location of your secret hunting grounds. Even if you've technically won the fight, you've lost the information war. Over the following weeks, more seals discover the canyon. Your exclusive resource becomes a competitive fishing ground, reducing your success rate and forcing you to develop new strategies for maintaining your nutritional needs. The experience teaches you harsh lessons about the temporary nature of competitive advantages and the importance of having multiple resources rather than relying on a single exceptional opportunity. Your territorial partnership becomes even more important during this period. With increased competition for your primary hunting ground, having a reliable ally becomes crucial for maintaining access to adequate food supplies. You and your partner develop more sophisticated cooperation strategies, coordinating your activities to maximize efficiency and minimize conflicts with other seals. The relationship also evolves in ways that surprise both of you. What started as a practical arrangement based on mutual benefit gradually develops emotional dimensions that neither of you initially expected. You begin to seek each other's company, even when there's no immediate survival benefit, swimming together during rest periods, and sharing information that goes beyond basic territorial coordination. These changes coincide with broader physiological developments that signal your approach toward full maturity. Your body continues to fill out, your hunting instincts become more refined, and you begin to experience behavioral drives that extend beyond immediate survival needs. The solitary focus on food, shelter, and safety that characterized your first 2 years starts to expand toward more complex social and reproductive considerations. Your second year draws to a close with you having established yourself as a competent, successful member of the adult seal community. You've survived every challenge the Arctic has thrown at you, developed sophisticated survival skills, and built social relationships that enhance your chances of long-term success. But you're also beginning to understand that survival itself is just the foundation for the next phase of your life. The approaching breeding season brings new instincts and new challenges that will test everything you've learned in entirely different ways. Your focus is starting to shift from individual survival toward the biological imperative that drives all life, reproduction. The skills that kept you alive through your first 2 years will remain important, but they'll soon be supplemented by new behaviors and priorities that you're only beginning to understand. As winter ice reaches its maximum extent, creating the stable platforms that will serve as breeding grounds for your species, you feel the pull of ancient instincts that connect you to generations of seals who have faced the same challenges and opportunities. Your individual story of survival is about to become part of the larger story of your species' continuation, with all the risks and rewards that entails. The helpless pup who struggled to catch his first fish has become a skilled predator capable of thriving in one of Earth's most challenging environments. But the next phase of your life will require different kinds of strength, different kinds of courage, and different kinds of intelligence than anything you've needed before. The real test of your success as a seal is just beginning. The ice beneath you has become your world again, but this time it's different. You're not the helpless pup who once clung to his mother's warmth. You're a mature seal approaching your 3rd year, and your body is sending signals you've never experienced before. The familiar urges to hunt and rest are joined by something new, something that makes you restless and drives you to behaviors you don't fully understand yet. Other seals around you are changing too. The colony has a different energy as winter reaches its peak. Males who usually ignore each other are becoming increasingly aggressive, their postures more threatening, their vocalizations louder and more frequent. Females seem more selective about where they choose to rest, more particular about who they allow in their vicinity. The entire social dynamic is shifting in preparation for something momentous. Your territorial partner notices the changes before you do. She's become more distant over the past few weeks, spending longer periods away from your shared hunting grounds. When she does return, there's something different about her scent, her behavior, the way she carries herself. You find yourself paying attention to these changes in ways that surprise you, drawn to details that would have been meaningless just months ago. The first real sign that everything is about to change comes when she doesn't return from what should have been a routine hunting trip. You wait at your usual rendezvous point, but hours pass with no sign of her. Concern turns to worry, then to something approaching panic as night falls and she still hasn't appeared. You venture into areas you've never explored before, calling for her with vocalizations that carry farther than your usual communications. When you finally find her, she's not alone. A large male seal is positioned nearby, his bulk making him seem almost like a different species compared to your more streamlined builds. His presence is clearly territorial. He's claiming space around her, and his message to you is unmistakable: stay away. Your partner acknowledges your presence with a brief glance, but makes no move to join you. The working relationship that defined your past year has ended as abruptly as it began. The rejection stings more than you expected. You've grown accustomed to having a reliable ally, someone whose presence made the dangerous world of Arctic survival slightly more manageable. Now you're alone again, but this time it's different from the loneliness of your early independence. This isn't about lacking survival skills. It's about being excluded from something that seems fundamentally important, even though you don't fully understand what that something is. You retreat to the edges of the colony, watching the increasingly complex social dynamics from a distance. Males who were previously content to coexist peacefully are now engaged in elaborate displays of dominance. They rear up on their hind flippers, making themselves appear larger, bellowing challenges that echo across the ice. Some of these confrontations escalate into physical fights that are more intense than anything you witnessed during your territorial disputes. The violence is shocking in its intensity. These aren't the brief, practical conflicts you've experienced over fishing spots. They're prolonged battles where the stakes seem much higher. You watch two large males tear at each other with a ferocity that leaves both bloodied and exhausted. The winner claims a prime position near a group of females, while the loser retreats to lick his wounds and contemplate his next move. Your own body begins to experience changes that help you understand what you're witnessing. Your neck thickens with muscle, your chest broadens, and you feel surges of aggressive energy that have nothing to do with hunting or territorial defense. These physical changes come with new behavioral impulses, urges to challenge other males, to claim space, to demonstrate your fitness in ways that go beyond simple survival skills. But you're still smaller than the established breeding males, less experienced in the specific type of combat that determines mating success. Your first attempt to assert yourself ends in humiliation. You approach a group of females, drawn by instincts you're still learning to interpret, only to be immediately confronted by a massive male who treats your presence as a direct insult. The fight is over before it really begins. He pins you down with embarrassing ease, then dismisses you with the contempt reserved for juveniles who don't know their place. The experience is educational in ways that hunting failures never were. Physical capability isn't enough in the breeding arena. You need size, experience, and the kind of confidence that comes from repeated success in high-stakes confrontations. You're physically mature enough to participate in the breeding season, but you lack the social status and fighting skills to compete effectively with established males. You spend the following days observing the successful breeders, studying their techniques, and trying to understand what separates winners from losers in these crucial encounters. Size matters, obviously, but so does timing, positioning, and the ability to read opponents' intentions. The best fighters don't just rely on brute force. They use strategy, patience, and an understanding of seal psychology that goes far beyond anything required for hunting fish. Your education continues through a series of minor confrontations with males closer to your own size and experience level. These fights are less decisive than the breeding territory battles, but they serve as valuable training for future seasons. You learn to use your speed and agility to compensate for your smaller size, to recognize when retreat is the better part of valor, and to distinguish between challenges worth accepting and those that will only result in unnecessary damage. The breeding season reaches its peak while you're still learning these lessons. The most successful males have established territories that include multiple females, and they defend these harems with constant vigilance. You watch the intricate social dynamics that govern these arrangements, how females choose which territories to occupy, how males balance the energy costs of territory defense against the benefits of mating access, how the entire system creates winners and losers based on a complex combination of physical and behavioral factors. Your exclusion from the primary breeding activities doesn't mean you're completely unsuccessful. You manage a few mating opportunities with females who are either unguarded or less desirable to the dominant males. These encounters are brief and often interrupted, but they represent your first steps toward reproductive success. More importantly, they provide learning experiences that will serve you better in future breeding seasons. The intensity of the breeding season takes its toll on everyone involved. The dominant males lose significant body weight defending their territories and servicing multiple females. Many emerge from the season visibly weakened, their fat reserves depleted, and their bodies scarred from repeated battles. Some don't survive the transition back to normal foraging behavior, their energy reserves too low to sustain effective hunting. You fare better than many of the breeding males because your lower status meant lower energy expenditure. While they were fighting and mating, you continued hunting and building reserves. As the breeding season winds down and the social structure returns to its normal patterns, you're in better physical condition than seals who achieved greater reproductive success but paid a higher physiological cost. The aftermath of breeding season brings its own challenges and opportunities. Many of the established territorial arrangements have been disrupted by the intense focus on reproduction. Prime hunting areas that were previously claimed by dominant males are temporarily available as those seals recover from their exertions. You capitalize on these opportunities, expanding your hunting territory and building the physical reserves you'll need for next year's breeding season. Your former territorial partner reappears during this period, no longer accompanied by her massive protector. She's pregnant now, her body already showing the subtle changes that indicate successful mating. The working relationship you once shared is impossible to resume. Her priorities have shifted entirely toward the demands of carrying and eventually raising offspring. She acknowledges your presence with the distant politeness of former colleagues, but the partnership that defined your second year is permanently in the past. The social dynamics of the post-breeding period are fascinating to observe. Hierarchies that seemed fixed during the height of mating season proved to be more fluid than you initially understood. Males who dominated through physical prowess during breeding season don't necessarily maintain that dominance during the foraging period. Different skills become more important: hunting efficiency, territorial knowledge, and the ability to build energy reserves for the next reproductive cycle. You begin to establish yourself within these shifting hierarchies. Your hunting skills, refined through 2 years of independent survival, give you advantages that some of the larger males lack. While they're still recovering from the breeding season, you're actively exploring new hunting grounds and developing techniques that will serve you well in the coming months. The discovery of a new fishing area becomes your key to improved social status. It's not as rich as your former secret canyon, but it's consistent and relatively undiscovered by other seals. You're careful this time to avoid the mistakes that led to your previous hunting ground becoming overcrowded. You hunt there selectively, varying your schedule and routes to minimize the chances of being followed. Your success at this new site allows you to offer something valuable to other seals: information about productive hunting areas in exchange for social cooperation. You begin to build a network of informal relationships based on mutual benefit rather than direct territorial partnership. These connections prove more flexible and durable than your previous exclusive alliance. The approach of your third winter brings reflection on how much your life has changed since you first left the ice as a desperate, hungry pup. You've survived predators, storms, territorial disputes, and your first breeding season. You've developed from a creature focused entirely on immediate survival to one capable of planning for future challenges and opportunities. But survival and even moderate success aren't enough anymore. The breeding season has awakened ambitions that go beyond simply staying alive and well-fed. You want to be one of the dominant males who control prime territories and have access to multiple mating opportunities. You want to pass your genes to the next generation, not as a marginal participant, but as a central player in the reproductive drama that ensures your species' continuation. Achieving those goals will require a different kind of preparation than anything you've done before. Physical strength and fighting ability become more important than they ever were during your survival-focused early years. You begin to seek out confrontations that will build your combat experience, engaging in practice battles with other young males who share similar ambitions. These training fights are different from the desperate territorial disputes of your juvenile years. They're more ritualized, more focused on building skills rather than defending immediate resources. Both participants understand that the real prize isn't the outcome of today's fight. It's the experience that will make them more effective in future breeding seasons. Your body continues to develop in response to these new demands. Your neck muscles grow thicker, your chest deepens, and your overall mass increases in ways that enhance your fighting capability rather than your swimming efficiency. These changes come with trade-offs. You're becoming less agile in the water, less energy efficient during long hunting trips, but the benefits for breeding success outweigh the costs for hunting performance. The psychological changes are just as significant as the physical ones. The cautious, survival-focused mindset that kept you alive through your first 2 years begins to give way to something more aggressive and ambitious. You start to think in terms of domination rather than mere coexistence, territory control rather than simple access to resources. Your hunting strategies evolve to support these new priorities. Instead of focusing purely on efficiency and safety, you begin to target prey that will build the specific type of strength and bulk that fighting requires. You seek out larger fish that provide more protein, hunting grounds that require more powerful swimming strokes, and feeding patterns that will maximize muscle development. The social aspects of preparation are equally important. You study the established breeding males with new attention to detail, analyzing their fighting techniques, territorial strategies, and methods for maintaining dominance over multiple opponents. You practice their signature moves, adapt their tactics to your own physical capabilities, and develop counters to their most effective techniques. Your network of informal alliances expands during this preparatory period. Other young males with similar ambitions become training partners and information sources. You share knowledge about fighting techniques, hunting strategies, and the behavioral patterns of established dominance. These relationships are competitive but also collaborative. Everyone benefits from raising the overall skill level of the group. The established breeding males begin to take notice of your development. Some respond with increased aggression, viewing your growing capabilities as a threat to their future dominance. Others seem almost pleased by the emergence of strong competitors, as if they recognize that the breeding system requires constant challenges to maintain its effectiveness. Your first serious challenge to an established dominant comes near the end of your 3rd year. It's not during breeding season. That would be premature and likely to result in serious injury. Instead, it's over a prime hunting territory that one of the previous season's successful breeders has claimed as his exclusive domain. He's still larger than you, still more experienced, but the gap has narrowed significantly since your humiliating defeat the previous year. The fight is longer and more evenly matched than either of you expected. Your speed and technique partially compensate for his size advantage, and your superior conditioning becomes apparent as the battle extends beyond the brief, explosive encounters that usually determine dominance. For the first time in your life, you're competing on roughly equal terms with a seal who has proven breeding success. The outcome is ambiguous. Neither of you achieves a decisive victory before exhaustion forces a mutual withdrawal. But the moral victory belongs to you. You've demonstrated that you can hold your own against established competition, and word of your performance spreads throughout the colony. Your social status jumps significantly as other seals recalibrate their assessment of your capabilities. The territory remains contested rather than clearly controlled by either party, but that partial success represents a major milestone in your development. You're no longer a peripheral figure, hoping for scraps of opportunity. You're a legitimate contender for the resources and status that define breeding success. Your preparation intensifies as the next breeding season approaches. Everything you've learned about survival, hunting, fighting, and social dynamics converges toward a single goal: establishing yourself as a dominant male capable of controlling territory and attracting mates. The stakes couldn't be higher, and failure means another year of marginal status while your rivals gain experience and confidence. But you're no longer the desperate, inexperienced seal who struggled through his first breeding season. You have skills, allies, and most importantly, the kind of confidence that comes from proving yourself against serious competition. The upcoming breeding season won't just be about participation. It will be about domination, about claiming your place among the elite males who shape the future of your species. The ice around you is beginning to shift again as seasonal changes herald the approach of another breeding cycle. Soon the colony will transform into the chaotic, violent, passionate arena where reproductive success is won and lost through combat, strategy, and sheer determination. You've spent 2 years preparing for this moment, and now it's almost here. Your story as a struggling survivor is ending, but your story as a dominant predator and successful breeder is just beginning. The challenges ahead will test everything you've learned in entirely new ways, but you've never been more ready to face them. The Arctic has made you strong, smart, and ruthless, exactly what you'll need to succeed in the most important battles of your life. The breeding season arrives like a storm you've been watching build on the horizon for months. The ice trembles beneath the weight of massive bodies as seals converge from across the Arctic, drawn by instincts older than memory. The air fills with sounds you've never heard before, deep guttural roars that seem to shake the very foundations of the frozen world around you. You're ready this time. Your body has transformed over the past year into something designed specifically for what's about to happen. Your neck is thick with muscle, your chest broad and powerful. The sleek, efficient form that served you so well as a hunter has given way to something built for dominance. Every scar from your practice battles, every pound of muscle earned through relentless preparation has led to this moment. The established males arrive first, claiming the prime real estate with the confidence of previous success. These are the titans who dominated last year's breeding season. Massive, scarred veterans who know exactly what they're doing. They position themselves strategically across the ice, creating invisible boundaries that lesser seals cross at their peril. Their very presence changes the atmosphere, turning what was once neutral territory into a battlefield divided among competing warlords. You watch them establish their domains with the analytical eye of someone who's spent months studying their techniques. Each dominant male claims a section of ice that provides access to water for hunting while offering defensive advantages against challengers. They space themselves carefully, close enough to demonstrate their status, far enough apart to avoid constant conflict over boundary disputes. The females begin arriving as the males finish staking their claims. They're different from the females you knew during the foraging season, more selective, more deliberate in their movements. They evaluate the available territories with a critical eye that goes beyond simple survival needs. They're choosing not just where to give birth, but which male's genes will combine with theirs to create the next generation. Your former territorial partner appears among the early arrivals. She's heavily pregnant now, her body rounded with the pup she'll deliver within weeks. She moves with the careful deliberation of someone carrying precious cargo, but there's something else in her bearing, an authority that wasn't there before. Pregnant females occupy a special status during breeding season, respected by males who might otherwise see them as resources to be claimed. She chooses a territory controlled by the same massive male who separated you last year. The decision isn't surprising, but it still stings. You've proven yourself capable of competing with established dominance, but she's making her choice based on demonstrated success rather than potential. Her selection validates his status while highlighting your continued position as an emerging challenger rather than an established power. Other females make different choices, and you study their decision-making process with intense interest. Some seem drawn to the largest, most aggressive males, choosing protection and proven genetic quality over other considerations. Others select territories based on resource access or defensive advantages, prioritizing the practical aspects of raising young over pure dominance displays. The social dynamics become incredibly complex as more seals arrive. Alliances form and dissolve based on shifting power balances. Males who were allies during the preparation phase become rivals as they compete for overlapping territories. Females who travel together separate to pursue individual reproductive strategies. The cooperative relationships that characterized the off-season give way to the brutal individualism of breeding competition. Your first territorial challenge comes sooner than expected. A section of prime ice becomes available when its previous occupant fails to return from the foraging season, possibly taken by predators, possibly unable to build the reserves necessary for breeding competition. The territory offers everything a successful male needs: access to water, defensive positions, and proximity to the areas where females are most likely to establish themselves. 3 other males have identified the same opportunity. The confrontation begins with posturing, each of you trying to intimidate the others into withdrawing without fighting. You rear up on your hind flippers, making yourself appear larger, bellowing challenges that echo across the ice. The sound carries farther than you intended, attracting attention from across the colony. The first fight is with the smallest of your competitors, a male roughly your own size, who lacks your preparation and experience. The battle is brief but decisive. Your training pays off immediately. You read his intentions before he acts, counter his attacks with techniques you've practiced hundreds of times, and establish dominance through superior skill rather than just size. He retreats with dignity intact, but territory less lost. The second challenger is more formidable, larger than you, with scars that tell stories of previous breeding seasons. This fight tests everything you've learned about combat strategy, pure aggression won't work against someone with his experience, so you rely on speed, timing, and the superior conditioning that comes from months of focused preparation. The battle moves from ice to water and back again. In the water, your smaller size becomes an advantage. You're more maneuverable, able to avoid his most powerful attacks while landing quick strikes of your own. On ice, you use your speed to stay mobile, never allowing him to pin you down, where his size advantage would be decisive. The turning point comes when he overcommits to a powerful attack that leaves him briefly off balance. You seize the opportunity, landing a series of strikes that leave him bloodied and shaken. He's not seriously injured, but he's lost the psychological advantage that experience usually provides. When he withdraws, it's with the grudging respect of someone who recognizes superior preparation and execution. The third competitor is the most dangerous, a male in his prime who controlled territory successfully in previous seasons before losing it to an even more dominant rival. He's fighting not just for this specific territory, but for his entire future as a breeding male. Defeat here could mean permanent relegation to marginal status, and that desperation makes him incredibly dangerous. This fight is everything you've trained for. He has size, experience, and the desperate strength that comes from having everything to lose. You have youth, preparation, and techniques refined through countless practice battles. The confrontation becomes a showcase of everything that makes SEAL combat both beautiful and terrifying. Neither of you gives ground easily. Every advantage is temporary. Every position must be earned through superior technique or timely aggression. The fight draws spectators, other SEALs who recognize they're witnessing something special, a changing of the guard that will reshape the colony's power structure. Your victory comes through accumulated damage, rather than a single decisive moment. Your superior conditioning allows you to maintain intensity, while his attacks gradually lose power. Your technical advantages create small opportunities that add up over time. When he finally acknowledges defeat, both of you are exhausted and bloodied, but there's no question about the outcome. The territory is yours. For the first time in your life, you control a prime section of breeding grounds with everything necessary for reproductive success. The psychological impact is immediate. You carry yourself differently. Your vocalizations carry new authority, and other SEALs respond to you with the deference accorded to established dominance. But claiming territory is only the beginning. Now you must defend it against constant challenges while simultaneously attracting females and managing the energy costs of dominance. The successful males make it look effortless, but you quickly discover that territorial control is exhausting work that requires constant vigilance and frequent violence. Your first challenger arrives within hours of your victory, a younger male, inspired by your success against established competition, decides to test whether your win was skill or luck. The fight is briefer than your territorial conquest. Your confidence is high, your techniques are proven, and you have the psychological advantage of fighting on your own ground. But challenges keep coming. Word of your territorial success spreads through the colony, attracting attention from males who see opportunity in your relatively recent emergence as a dominant force. Some are testing your resolve, others are genuinely trying to displace you, and a few seem motivated by nothing more than the chance to fight someone whose reputation is still being established. Each successful defense strengthens your position, but the energy costs are enormous. Fighting burns through fat reserves at an alarming rate, and you haven't had time to establish the efficient hunting routines that allow experienced dominants to maintain their condition throughout breeding season. You're learning why many males emerge from breeding season significantly weakened despite their reproductive success. The first female to choose your territory arrives during a brief lull between challenges. She's young but experienced, having successfully raised pups in previous seasons. Her selection of your territory represents a crucial validation, proof that you've achieved legitimate dominant status rather than just winning a lucky fight. Her presence changes everything. Now you're not just defending abstract territory, you're protecting a female who represents your primary chance for reproductive success. The responsibility adds new dimensions to every decision about when to fight, when to retreat, and how to allocate your energy between defense and courtship. The courtship behaviors are instinctive but complex. You must demonstrate your fitness and dominance while avoiding actions that might drive her away. It's a delicate balance between aggression toward rivals and gentleness toward your chosen mate. Too much aggression makes you appear unstable. Too little suggests weakness that might attract challenges from other males. Your mating success attracts additional females to your territory. Each new arrival increases your potential reproductive output, but also multiplies your defensive responsibilities. Managing multiple females requires skills that go beyond simple fighting ability. You must maintain their loyalty while deterring rivals, balance attention between individuals while watching for external threats, and coordinate your activities to maximize breeding success while maintaining territorial control. The peak of breeding season arrives with your territory hosting 4 females at various stages of pregnancy and estrus. You've achieved everything you dreamed of during your years of preparation, dominant status, prime territory, and multiple mating opportunities. But success brings new challenges that test your abilities in ways you never anticipated. Managing your harem requires constant attention to social dynamics. The females have their own hierarchies and preferences that influence their behavior in ways you must understand and accommodate. Dominant females expect preferential treatment and prime positions within the territory. Subordinate females require protection from both external threats and internal competition. The energy demands of maintaining dominance while servicing multiple females push your body to its limits. You're losing weight rapidly despite your best efforts to hunt efficiently during brief breaks in territorial duties. Your movements become more deliberate as fatigue accumulates, and you must rely increasingly on reputation and psychological intimidation rather than pure physical prowess to deter challengers. Other dominant males are facing similar challenges, and the breeding season begins to take its toll across the colony. Some territories change hands as exhausted defenders succumb to fresh challenges. Others consolidate as weaker males abandon their claims to conserve energy for survival. The social structure becomes increasingly fluid as the season progresses. Your most serious challenge comes from an unexpected source. The male you defeated for territorial control returns with an ally. The 2-on-1 confrontation represents a new level of strategic thinking that goes beyond individual combat. You must fight both opponents while preventing them from coordinating their attacks effectively. The battle is the most complex and dangerous of your life. Fighting multiple opponents requires different techniques, different energy management, and different tactical thinking than single combat. You must position yourself to avoid being surrounded while maintaining access to escape routes if the fight turns against you. Your superior conditioning proves decisive once again. While your opponents must coordinate their efforts and share the energy costs of aggression, you can focus entirely on defense and counterattack. Their alliance begins to break down as fatigue sets in, and each begins to prioritize his own survival over their shared objective. The victory establishes your reputation as someone capable of defending against coordinated challenges. Word spreads through the colony that you're not just physically capable, but strategically sophisticated, a combination that makes you a formidable opponent for any rival. The number of direct challenges decreases as potential opponents reassess the likelihood of successful attacks. Your breeding success continues throughout the peak season. Each of your females gives birth to healthy pups, validating your genetic quality and ensuring the continuation of your bloodline. The psychological satisfaction of reproductive success is unlike anything you've experienced, deeper and more lasting than the temporary pleasures of hunting success or territorial victories. But breeding season success comes with long-term costs that become apparent as the intensity begins to fade. Your body weight has dropped significantly, your fat reserves are nearly depleted, and your overall condition is worse than at any time since your juvenile struggles. The trade-off between current reproductive success and future survival becomes starkly apparent. The transition from breeding season to normal foraging patterns proves more difficult than you anticipated. Your body has adapted to the high-stress, high-energy demands of territorial dominance, and readjusting to efficient hunting requires relearning skills that seemed automatic just months ago. Your reduced condition makes you more vulnerable to predators and less capable of accessing the best hunting grounds. Recovery takes months of careful energy management and gradual rebuilding of physical reserves. You must balance the need to regain condition against the desire to maintain your newly established status within the colony's social hierarchy. Too much focus on hunting might signal weakness to potential rivals. Too little might result in insufficient recovery for next season's challenges. Your relationship with your former harem dissolves as the females focus entirely on raising their pups. The intense social bonds of breeding season give way to the practical independence of motherhood. Your territorial partner from years past raises her pup with efficient competence, but shows no interest in renewing any form of partnership. Her priorities have shifted entirely toward ensuring her offspring's survival. The pups themselves represent both your greatest achievement and your greatest vulnerability. Each successful birth validates your reproductive success, but each pup also represents genetic material that must survive to maturity for your breeding efforts to have evolutionary meaning. You have no direct role in raising them, but their survival rates will ultimately determine the success of your entire breeding season. Watching the pups develop provides unexpected insights into your own early life. You observe their desperate dependence on maternal care, their gradual development of basic survival skills, and their eventual transition to independence. The cycle that began with your own birth as a helpless pup is now continuing through your own offspring, connecting you to the endless chain of reproduction and survival that defines all life. Your status as a proven breeder changes your position within the colony's year-round social structure. Other males treat you with the respect accorded to demonstrated success, while younger males study your techniques and seek opportunities to challenge you. You've become part of the established order that once seemed impossibly distant during your own preparation years. The knowledge that next year will bring new challenges motivates your recovery efforts. Other males are preparing just as intensively as you once did, studying your weaknesses and developing strategies specifically designed to counter your strengths. The target on your back is now permanent. Success in one breeding season guarantees nothing about future outcomes. Your hunting territories must be reestablished and defended against competitors who moved into your former areas during your breeding season absence. The process requires rebuilding relationships with other seals, rediscovering productive fishing grounds, and adapting to changes in prey populations and ice conditions that occurred while your attention was focused elsewhere. The physical recovery is gradual but steady. Your body adapts back toward the efficient form that serves hunting better than fighting, though you retain much of the muscle mass and conditioning that enabled your breeding success. The scars from territorial battles become permanent markers of your achievements, visible proof of your status that other seals can read and interpret. Your 4th year ends with you established as a successful breeding male who has proven his ability to compete at the highest levels of SEAL society. The desperate struggle for basic survival that characterized your early years has given way to the more complex challenges of maintaining dominance while managing the energy costs of reproductive success. But the Arctic doesn't allow for complacency. Climate patterns are shifting in ways that affect ice formation, prey availability, and the timing of breeding seasons. Ocean temperatures fluctuate unpredictably, changing fish migration patterns and forcing adaptations in hunting techniques that served you well for years. New predators appear in your territory, species that weren't present during your youth but are expanding their ranges in response to changing environmental conditions. Their hunting techniques are unfamiliar, their behavioral patterns unpredictable, and your carefully developed survival strategies must be modified to account for threats you never previously encountered. The seal colony itself is changing as older dominants age out of breeding competition and new challengers emerge with techniques and strategies you've never seen before. The social dynamics that seemed stable and predictable are shifting in response to generational changes and environmental pressures that affect the entire ecosystem. Your own body is beginning to show the first subtle signs of aging. Recovery from injuries takes slightly longer, hunting efficiency decreases marginally, and the boundless energy of youth gives way to the more measured approach of experience. These changes aren't dramatic yet, but they represent the beginning of a transition that will define the later phases of your life. The approaching breeding season carries new uncertainties that go beyond simple territorial competition. Environmental changes have altered the timing of female arrivals, the availability of prime territories, and the energy costs of maintaining dominance. Your proven strategies must be adapted to conditions that differ significantly from your previous successful season. Younger males have studied your techniques intensively, developing counters specifically designed to exploit perceived weaknesses in your fighting style. They arrive at breeding grounds better prepared and more strategically sophisticated than you were at their age, representing challenges that will test whether experience can compensate for declining physical capabilities. Your breeding success has also created new responsibilities that extend beyond personal survival. Your offspring from previous seasons are now approaching independence, and their survival rates will ultimately determine the evolutionary success of your entire reproductive career. The knowledge that your genetic legacy depends on factors beyond your direct control adds new dimensions to every survival decision. The ice beneath you shifts again as another breeding season approaches, but this time you face it not as an ambitious challenger, but as an established dominant with everything to lose. The skills that brought you success must now be used to maintain position rather than gain it, requiring different strategies and different kinds of courage than anything you've needed before. Your story as a SEAL continues to evolve, but the fundamental challenges remain unchanged. Survive, adapt, reproduce, and pass your hard-won knowledge to the next generation. The Arctic tests every generation with the same unforgiving standards, and your success so far guarantees nothing about your ability to meet future challenges. The cycle of life that began with your desperate first attempts to catch fish now encompasses your role as a proven dominant whose own offspring face the same struggles you once endured. Your individual survival story has become part of the larger narrative of species adaptation and evolutionary success that connects all seals across generations and continents. Whether you can maintain your position through multiple breeding seasons, adapt to changing environmental conditions, and successfully pass your genetic material to future generations remains to be determined. The Arctic doesn't care about your past achievements. It only tests your ability to meet today's challenges with yesterday's experience and tomorrow's hope. Your life as a seal continues, shaped by forces beyond your control, but defined by choices within your power. The ice beneath you may shift, the climate may change, and new competitors may emerge, but your story will be written by how well you adapt, survive, and thrive in whatever conditions the future brings. The ice beneath you is thinner this year. You notice it immediately when you arrive at what should have been prime breeding territory. The familiar platforms where you dominated last season are smaller, less stable, breaking apart in ways that never happened before. The water is warmer too, and the fish you've relied on for years are behaving differently, schooling in new patterns that force you to adapt hunting techniques you thought were perfected. Your body feels the changes as well. The recovery from last year's breeding season took longer than expected, and while you're still formidable, there's a subtle stiffness in your movements that wasn't there before. Your reflexes are a fraction slower, your endurance slightly reduced. These differences are barely noticeable to you, but other seals can sense them. The younger males circle with increased confidence, testing boundaries they wouldn't have dared approach just months ago. The social dynamics have shifted dramatically since your last breeding season. Several of the established dominants who defined the colony's power structure have disappeared entirely. Some lost to predators, others simply too weakened by previous seasons to return to breeding competition. Their absence creates opportunities, but it also means the hierarchies you understood and navigated successfully are being rewritten by newcomers with different strategies and techniques. Your first challenge comes earlier than usual, from a male you remember as a marginal competitor who barely warranted attention last season. He's transformed himself through intensive preparation, arriving bigger, stronger, and more confident than you've ever seen him. The fight that follows is closer than it should be, not because he's dramatically improved, but because you're not quite the dominant force you were 12 months ago. You win, but the victory requires more effort and leaves you more drained than similar battles did in your prime. The other seals watching the confrontation notice these subtle changes, and word spreads through the colony that the previous season's champion might be vulnerable. The psychological impact is immediate. More challengers appear, testing your resolve with increasing frequency and boldness. The females arriving for breeding season seem to sense these shifts as well. While some still choose your territory based on your proven track record, others show more interest in the younger, more vigorous males who represent fresh genetic possibilities. Your harem is smaller this year, and the females you do attract are more selective about when and how they interact with you. Managing a reduced territory with fewer females should be easier, but the constant challenges from ambitious males make every day exhausting. You're fighting more frequently than during your peak season, but each battle is harder and recovery takes longer. The mathematics of dominance are working against you. Younger opponents can afford to lose several fights while learning from each defeat, but every battle you lose could be your last as a breeding male. Your hunting efficiency suffers as the demands of territorial defense increase. The brief breaks between challenges that once allowed for productive fishing now barely provide time for basic recovery. Your condition deteriorates gradually but steadily, creating a dangerous cycle where weakness invites more challenges, which in turn cause further weakening. The environmental changes compound these personal struggles. Ice formations that provided reliable hunting grounds for years are now unstable or absent entirely. Traditional prey species are migrating at different times or avoiding areas they once frequented regularly. Even your most reliable fishing techniques require constant adjustment to remain effective in changing conditions. One morning, you wake to find that a significant portion of your territory has literally broken away during the night. The ice sheet that supported your primary resting area has separated from the main formation, taking with it the strategic advantages that made your position defensible. Overnight, you've lost half your domain to forces completely beyond your control. The territorial reorganization that follows is chaotic and violent. Multiple males rush to claim the newly available space, while you struggle to maintain control over what remains of your original territory. The fighting is intense and prolonged, involving more participants than any conflict you've previously experienced. By the time the boundaries stabilize, your holdings have been reduced to a fraction of their former size. Your reduced territory can support fewer females, which means fewer mating opportunities and lower reproductive success. The females who remain are those with fewer alternatives, either young and inexperienced or older individuals whose own reproductive prospects are declining. While any breeding opportunity is valuable, you're acutely aware that your genetic contribution to future generations is diminishing. The younger males who have claimed portions of your former territory are everything you once were: vigorous, confident, and backed by the kind of intensive preparation you remember from your own rise to dominance. They fight with the desperate energy of seals who know this might be their only chance, while you fight with the weariness of someone who has already proven it's everything, but must continue proving it repeatedly. Your most serious challenge comes from a coalition of 3 younger males who coordinate their attacks in ways you've never encountered before. They've clearly studied your fighting techniques and developed specific counters to your most effective moves. The battle becomes a test of experience against innovation, individual skill against coordinated strategy. The fight moves across multiple ice formations as you try to use terrain advantages to compensate for being outnumbered. Your superior knowledge of the local area helps initially, but your opponents adapt quickly and soon neutralize your positional advantages. The confrontation becomes a pure test of endurance. Can your experience and technique outlast their youth and numbers? You survive the encounter, but just barely. 2 of your attackers withdraw with significant injuries, but the third maintains enough strength to continue challenging you. Your victory is technical rather than decisive. You've proven you can still compete, but at a cost that leaves you vulnerable to fresh opponents who might arrive before you can recover. The aftermath of the coalition fight marks a turning point in your breeding season. Other males recognize that you can be beaten by coordinated attacks, and several begin forming their own alliances specifically targeting your remaining territory. You're no longer just defending against individual challenges. You're facing organized campaigns designed to eliminate you from breeding competition entirely. Your response requires strategic thinking that goes beyond pure fighting ability. You begin forming your own alliances with males whose territories border yours, creating mutual defense agreements that provide backup when coordinated attacks occur. The politics of breeding season become as important as the physical confrontations, requiring social skills that complement your combat experience. The alliance strategy works initially, helping you repel several coordinated challenges and maintain control over your reduced territory. But alliances are fragile things built on temporary shared interests, and your partners have their own ambitions that may eventually conflict with yours. The social landscape becomes increasingly complex as multiple groups form, dissolve, and reform based on shifting power balances. Your breeding success this season is modest compared to your previous achievements. The females in your territory produce healthy pups, but their numbers are significantly reduced from your peak performance. Each successful birth is precious, representing genetic continuity that becomes more important as your opportunities for future reproduction become less certain. The physical toll of the season is severe. Your body weight drops to levels you haven't experienced since your juvenile years, and recovery seems slower and less complete than in previous seasons. The accumulated damage from years of territorial battles is beginning to affect your mobility and fighting effectiveness in ways that can't be ignored or compensated for through technique alone. As breeding season winds down, you face a crucial decision about your future. You can continue competing for breeding territories, accepting the increasing likelihood of serious defeat and potential injury. Alternatively, you can begin transitioning toward a different role within the colony's social structure, one that emphasizes survival and resource management over reproductive competition. The choice isn't entirely yours to make. Your reduced condition and demonstrated vulnerabilities mean that younger males will continue challenging you regardless of your preferences. The question becomes whether you can find ways to remain competitive despite declining physical capabilities, or whether attempting to do so will result in defeats that eliminate you from breeding competition entirely. Your former harem disperses as the females focus on raising their pups. The social bonds of breeding season dissolve, leaving you isolated in ways that feel different from previous years. The camaraderie of shared territorial defense disappears, and your alliance partners return to their own concerns without the immediate threats that brought you together. The transition back to normal foraging patterns is more difficult than ever before. Your hunting territories have been disrupted by the territorial changes of breeding season, forcing you to re-establish relationships with areas you haven't used regularly in months. Some of your most productive fishing grounds are now controlled by seals who don't recognize your historical claims to those resources. Your reputation as a former dominant provides some advantages during this transition period. Younger seals still show deference to your experience, and some actively seek opportunities to learn from your hunting techniques. But respect for past achievements doesn't translate into current resource access, and you must earn your place in the post-breeding hierarchy through present performance rather than historical success. The environmental changes that affected breeding season continue to influence your hunting success. Traditional prey species remain scarce or unpredictable, forcing you to develop new techniques for catching fish you previously ignored. Your adaptability is tested in ways it hasn't been since your juvenile years, when every day brought new challenges that required innovative solutions. Your body begins to adapt to its new reality during the months following breeding season. The muscle mass built for territorial combat gradually gives way to the more efficient form that serves hunting better than fighting. Your movements become more economical, your energy management more precise, as you optimize for survival rather than dominance. The scars from your final breeding season become permanent reminders of what you achieved and what it cost. Each mark tells a story of challenges faced and overcome, victories earned, and prices paid. Other seals can read these stories in your appearance, understanding immediately that you're someone who competed at the highest levels even if you no longer dominate those competitions. Your relationship with the colony's social structure evolves as your role changes from active competitor to experienced survivor. Younger males still seek your territory when opportunities arise, but with less urgency and aggression than they showed during your dominant years. You're no longer perceived as a major threat to their ambitions, which reduces conflict but also diminishes your status. The knowledge you've accumulated through years of successful competition becomes your primary asset in this new phase of life. Your understanding of ice conditions, prey behavior, predator patterns, and seasonal changes represents wisdom that can't be gained through preparation alone. It requires years of successful survival in conditions that eliminate most competitors. Some of the younger seals recognize the value of this knowledge and seek opportunities to learn from your experience. These informal mentoring relationships provide social connections that partially replace the intense bonds of breeding season competition. Teaching others also reinforces your own understanding, helping you maintain skills that might otherwise deteriorate through disuse. Your hunting grounds stabilize into a sustainable pattern that emphasizes efficiency over ambition. You focus on areas where your experience provides maximum advantage, avoiding competition with seals who are stronger or faster but lack your understanding of local conditions. Your catch rates remain respectable, though you're no longer capable of the exceptional performance that supported breeding season energy demands. The environmental changes continue to accelerate, forcing adaptations that challenge every seal in the colony, regardless of age or experience. Ice formations that seemed permanent throughout your lifetime are disappearing. Prey species are shifting their ranges, and weather patterns are becoming increasingly unpredictable. Your accumulated knowledge helps with these changes, but adaptation requires energy and flexibility that become more precious with each passing season. Your offspring from previous breeding seasons are now approaching their own reproductive maturity, creating a strange sense of continuity that connects your current survival struggles to your past breeding successes. Watching them develop hunting skills and social awareness provides insights into your own development, while highlighting how much the environment has changed since your own youth. Some of your offspring show exceptional promise, displaying the same combination of intelligence and determination that enabled your own rise to dominance. Others struggle with challenges that seem more difficult than those you faced at their age, possibly due to environmental changes or increased competition from more seals surviving to reproductive age. Your role as a genetic contributor to future generations is now complete, but your influence on the colony's knowledge base continues through informal teaching and example. The techniques you developed, the strategies you refined, and the lessons you learned are being passed to seals who will face challenges you never encountered in environments you never experienced. The ice beneath you continues to shift and change, but your relationship with these changes has evolved from resistance to acceptance. You adapt your behaviors to accommodate new realities, rather than trying to maintain patterns that no longer serve current conditions. This flexibility, learned through decades of survival, becomes your primary advantage in an increasingly unpredictable world. Your 5th year ends with you established in a new role within the colony's social ecosystem. No longer a dominant breeder, but still a successful survivor whose knowledge and experience provide value to the community. The desperate struggles of youth and the intense competitions of breeding season have given way to the more measured challenges of maintaining efficiency and relevance in a changing world. The future remains uncertain, shaped by environmental forces beyond any individual seal's control. But your story continues, written now in the quieter language of sustainable survival rather than the dramatic narratives of territorial conquest. The skills that brought you this far continue to serve you, adapted to new purposes and refined by ongoing experience. Your life as a seal has entered a new chapter, one that emphasizes wisdom over strength, efficiency over dominance, and adaptation over competition. The ice may continue changing beneath you, but your ability to read those changes and respond appropriately represents the culmination of everything you've learned through years of Arctic survival. The colony around you continues its eternal cycles of birth, growth, competition, reproduction, and death. Your individual story is now part of that larger narrative, contributing to the species' ongoing adaptation to an ever-changing world. Whether through direct offspring, taught techniques, or simply the example of successful long-term survival, your influence extends beyond your own immediate needs into the broader community of seals navigating the challenges of Arctic life. Your 6th year brings changes that run deeper than shifting ice or wandering prey. The colony itself feels different now, populated by seals who learned their survival skills in conditions you barely recognize. The techniques that once set you apart are now common knowledge, passed down through the informal networks of teaching and observation that connect generations of Arctic survivors. You notice it first in their hunting patterns. The younger seals move through the water with efficiency that took you years to develop, but they lack something harder to define: the deep understanding of ice behavior that comes from experiencing multiple cycles of formation and breakup. They're skilled, but their skills are narrower, adapted to the current environment without the flexibility that comes from surviving dramatic changes. This becomes apparent during your first major storm of the season. The weather arrives with an intensity that reminds you of the legendary blizzards older seals used to describe, bringing conditions most of the colony has never experienced. While you instinctively seek shelter in formations you remember from similar events years ago, many of the younger seals make decisions that seem logical but prove dangerous as the storm intensifies. You find yourself guiding small groups to better shelter, sharing knowledge that feels automatic to you, but represents life-saving information to seals who've never faced anything similar. The teaching happens naturally, without formal instruction. You simply move towards safety, and others follow, learning through observation and imitation rather than explicit communication. The storm passes after 4 days, leaving behind an ice landscape that's been completely restructured. Familiar landmarks are gone, replaced by formations that will take weeks to understand and navigate safely. Your mental map of the territory requires major revisions, but the process of adaptation feels familiar. You've done this before, multiple times, and each experience makes the next one slightly easier to manage. The younger seals struggle more with this disruption. Their shorter memories mean they have fewer alternative strategies to draw upon, fewer backup hunting grounds to access when primary territories become unavailable. Some panic, burning energy in frantic searches for familiar features that no longer exist. Others become paralyzed by uncertainty, unable to choose between multiple unfamiliar options. The ice beneath you grows thinner with each passing season, and you understand now that your story is drawing to its inevitable close. Your body, scarred by countless battles and shaped by years of Arctic survival, moves with the careful deliberation of age. The desperate pup who once struggled for his first breath of independence has become something the younger seals look to for guidance, though they may not realize it yet. Your offspring have grown strong, carrying forward the genetic legacy you fought so hard to establish. Some have become dominant breeders themselves, others skilled survivors who adapt to challenges you never faced. Each represents a small victory against the endless entropy of the Arctic, proof that your struggles had meaning beyond mere individual survival. The colony continues its ancient rhythms around you: birth, growth and competition, reproduction, death. New pups slide into the world just as you once did, helpless and crying for warmth that may or may not come. The cycle that began with your mother's milk now continues through countless other mothers, each following instincts older than memory itself. Your final winter arrives not with drama, but with a quiet recognition that recovery takes too long now, that each hunt requires more effort for smaller rewards. You've given everything you had to give, your genes to future generations, your knowledge to younger seals, your strength to the eternal competition that shapes your species. When the end comes, it's simply another part of the story that began when you first touched the cold water and discovered you could swim. Life as a seal, brutal, beautiful, and brief, but lived fully in one of Earth's most unforgiving places. Here you can find the next video. Until then, see you soon.